Texans continuing to add bodies on defense. EJ Speed, the latest, created a lot of reaction, but is it proportional to the impact that he can make on the Texans? I got 5 immediate thoughts here in the locker room. Also subscribe to SNL Texans Talk with myself and Cody Stutes. Thought number 1 right off the top, EJ Speed as a player / fit. EJ Speed's a depth guy. You look at the annual value of the contract, and it's a 1-year deal. It's about $5 million. That's about the same as Laken Tomlinson, who's the guard that has started every game since 2017, kind of looked at as a body. It's around the same area as Derek Barnett, Mario Edwards Jr. Those are just depth guys. Linebacker depth was a problem last year. They need to figure something out. That's what EJ Speed is. He started 32 games in 6 years. If you just look at tackles, it looks really good. He had 142 last year. But in his last 2 seasons in which he finally got to start, and he started 26 games in the last 2 seasons. Before that, he started 6 games in a total of 4 seasons. So some would say he was overexposed as a full-time starter, as a depth guy. This is great. Your linebacker depth is at least improved, and we'll see how he fits into what the Texans do. So a lot of attention. I think that has more to do with the podcast, which was polarizing with Indianapolis fans. We'll talk about that in a sec. And the name's just cool, EJ Speed. But as far as like a massive impact, this is maybe a notch below bringing back Derek Barnett and Mario Edwards Jr. And it's right up there with the Laken Tomlinson thing. So we'll see what EJ Speed does. We'll see what he's asked to do, and we'll see how he fits. But this is just a depth signing, perhaps a very important one, though, which we'll get to in a second. Thought 2, the impact on Christian Harris. Immediately I saw on the internet and I heard, oh, this is really big for Christian Harris. Let me put this in perspective. Christian Harris missed the overwhelming majority of last year, and he started 26 games in 3 seasons. EJ Speed has started 32 games in 6. EJ Speed is not the same caliber of player as Christian Harris when healthy, and that's a big if, which might be why he's here, because you've had to be without Christian Harris for a large portion of the time. But let's not make any mistake about this. Christian Harris, DeMeco Ryans loves him, and he's on the final year of a rookie contract. Maybe this kind of is some like real low level kind of lighting a fuse under Christian Harris, but I don't know that he needed that. I think he just needs to stay healthy. Unless there's something about Christian Harris that we don't know, then this has little to no impact on Christian Harris, because if both of these guys are healthy, DeMeco Ryans is going to use Christian Harris more than EJ Speed, and Christian Harris is going to make more plays than EJ Speed. Now, that's a big if because of the injuries, but Christian Harris, DeMeco loves him unless there's some sort of problem. He didn't stop praising Christian Harris last year, and he stood by him through the entire season. I would think in the final year of his contract, Christian Harris, they're probably looking forward to working with him. So as far as an impact on Christian Harris, that's asinine. It's a depth guy and a guy to add. And let's be honest, Christian Harris doesn't stay on the football field, so maybe you do see EJ Speed. It's a better insurance policy, but the impact on Christian Harris is a better player than EJ Speed. I don't even necessarily think it's close when he's healthy. Thought 3, the past words about CJ Stroud. Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed both had a lot to say about the Texans. I don't think this is impactful. I think it actually kind of creates a little bit more buzz about the signing than the reality of what it actually is, which is a depth signing. You would see the viral clips when you'd scroll through Twitter. A lot of times it would be in your For You section. You didn't even know about this podcast. You'd see EJ Speed and Zaire Franklin talking smack about CJ Stroud. They also said a lot of good things about CJ Stroud. I actually think CJ Stroud likes this type of stuff. He's kind of a natural ball buster, for lack of a better term. So I don't think there's any negative impact on this. I don't know, though, if he's going to want to do a podcast, if he's going to perform like he did last season, which brings me to thought 4, the Indianapolis Colts reaction. And I think Indianapolis Colts fans are actually very happy, because you heard some of the stuff that McAfee had to say about the podcast that Speed was on. I was in the press box, and we actually talked about this on SNL, myself and Cody Stutes. Like it was basically a roast session with Indianapolis media about EJ Speed every time he would miss a tackle. And he was near the top of the league in that category. They were talking about, I remember the joke that we brought up after the Texans played was he's trying to be a full-time podcaster now instead of a football player. Colts fans were kind of sour on the whole vibe last year. I think a lot of them took their frustration on EJ Speed. I asked someone, my go-to guy in Indianapolis, about EJ Speed, said it's a good signing, said he was perhaps overexposed as a full-time starter, but he'll make some plays. A lot of times there'll be some frustrating penalties. And of course the missed tackles are part of it, which your reserve linebacker is probably going to miss some tackles. And the more that you play, if you are overexposed, you're probably going to be near the top of the league in missed tackles. So Indianapolis fans, I think they're happy because now they have a reason to really, really dislike EJ Speed, although it kind of felt like that was the vibe out of there. I'm sure there's some love, but there was some frustration with the podcast. When you're struggling as a football team and stuff is kind of falling apart and your guys going viral and talking about it, I think a lot of fans take exception with that. And as far as Colts media, they just thought that perhaps he's just kind of more of a part-time utility type of guy than a starter, which kind of connects what we were saying earlier about Christian Harris and EJ Speed as a fit. Thought 5, and this could be the most impactful. Why do you need so much linebacker depth? Because it was such a problem last year. And I salute DeMeco Ryans for the role that he found for Jalen Petrie last year. And the adjustment that he had, playing him in the nickel and all that. And you saw kind of a different style of defense. I do wonder if with the health of Christian Harris, with improved linebacker depth, maybe we see a lot more 3 linebacker sets from DeMeco Ryans next season. What the Petrie role is probably going to remain the same, but are we going to see it as often? Could we see more traditional 3 linebacker sets? And that's why you need more bodies, more guys who've actually gotten experience. There was a game last year where your 2 special teams aces were having to start at linebacker. And that's not a situation you want to fall into. But now you have a guy who's started 36 games. He's got experience. And who knows what happens? Maybe DeMeco Ryans is able to sprinkle some of that fairy dust on EJ Speed, and his best football is ahead of him. But I do wonder if, and this could perhaps be the most impactful thing, and I thought this was a possibility even before Speed, but I do wonder if we see a little bit more 3 linebacker sets, and DeMeco Ryans kind of sets it up to where he can kind of shuffle guys in and out a little bit more, as opposed to playing Petrie as essentially the 3rd linebacker as often as he did. I think we're going to see a lot more between the bodies on the defense that they've added, the D-line, between the bodies that they've added at linebacker, even the secondary. It's going to be interesting to see how that shapes out. I think we're going to see perhaps a lot more of an array of defensive sets, and I think maybe more 3 linebacker sets could be a thing. Final thoughts on the signing here in the locker room. Be sure to subscribe, like, right along. I think this is a fine depth signing. I think the luster of it kind of magnifies because he was in the division, because he said what he said about CJ Stroud, kind of just some normal trash talk, because they are trying to always go viral with the podcast clips. I think it's a good depth signing, much like some of the other stuff that we've seen. But as far as a major impact on anyone on the roster, I don't think Christian Harris is impacted unless there's something else going on with his health or something behind the scenes. He seems like someone that DeMeco Ryans is excited to get the best out of. So I think Christian Harris, I actually think we might be sleeping on him this year after talking about him as potentially the breakout player last year. So nice little depth signing. There's a lot of competition in camp. There's a lot of things to watch. EJ Speed, he's created some local headlines from a football perspective. Solid depth signing, nothing more, nothing less. Subscribe, like, right along. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Happy March Madness. Have a hell of a weekend.